Hello, I'm Shinoa Igawa. Welcome to Native Heartbeat, a program that covers issues and events important to Indigenous people throughout North America, including stories about culture, history, and sovereignty, told in our own native voice. Today we are visiting the Daybreak Star Indian Cultural Center in Seattle, Washington, during the benefit concert titled Looking Back Toward the Future. The benefit concert will raise funding and awareness of the 40th anniversary of the successful takeover of Fort Lawton by the Seattle area Native community and the subsequent creation of the United Indians of All Tribes Foundation.
Overall, our primary mission is to foster and sustain a sense of identity, tradition, and well-being among Native people of the Puget Sound area. And primarily we do this through offering cultural, education, social, and economic programs.
We will have more on the history of the United Indians of All Tribes Foundation later in the program. But first, here is a preview of the stories you will be seeing in this episode of Native Heartbeat. Squamish First Nation totem raising, Stanley Park, the beautiful centerpiece of Vancouver, British Columbia, gets a new totem pole. The city and band members come together in celebration to honor the resurgence of First Nations art, culture, and history. The Puyallup tribe of Indians keeps a promise to their elders with the grand opening of the House of Respect Elders Center. Canoes have been the primary means of transportation for Indian people upon all the various Pacific coastal waterways. The John Barnett Memorial Intertribal Canoe Race is one of the annual events that keeps the tradition of war canoe racing alive. These stories and more as Native Heartbeat continues. Longtime Squamish First Nation woodcarver Robert Yelton once had a dream of carving a totem pole in honor of his mother, Rose Yelton, who had grown up living in what is now the city of Vancouver's renowned Stanley Park. Much to his own surprise, the historic events that followed went well beyond Robert's original dream. Native Heartbeat's Doreen Manuel has the story.
For countless generations, the lands and waters of what is now the city of Vancouver, British Columbia, were the traditional home of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh. Vancouver is widely renowned as a world-class city, and yet the first people to live here have become all but invisible in their own territories. Today, however, with their connection through harmony with all creation, First Nations people are adapting and changing, bringing forth a new resurgence of their ancient yet vital culture. Meet Robert Yelton, a Squamish First Nation band member. Robert has been carving and creating with cedar most all of his life. Yet Robert had a dream of carving a totem pole in honor of his mother's memory. His mother, Rose Yelton, grew up in what is now Vancouver's most beautiful centerpiece, Stanley Park. Indeed, what is now park property was once the prime location for several Squamish villages before European contact. And sadly, over time, just like all other Squamish people who had lived here, Robert's mother, Rose, was eventually forced from the park's boundaries at around age 19. Robert and some of his closest friends followed through with the dream, persevering through the cold, the rain, and the heat of midsummer. They did carve a totem pole in honor of Rose Yelton. And of all places, the precision work of Coast Salish art ended up here in Stanley Park, just up the hill on the point where Rose's childhood home once stood. The park board had allowed many totems to be erected in Stanley Park, all from other First Nations located far away from the city, but never a totem from the very people who had actually lived here and were also laid to rest here for thousands of years. The Canadian federal government had originally passed a resolution in June of 1887 establishing Stanley Park. And since then, there has not been a Squamish totem raised here until now.
It's very significant because it recognizes that First Nations lived here It recognizes their very important, valuable culture that I think that we haven't had enough of, and that the public obviously enjoy and they want more of it. And this pole really adds to the local component and the sensitivity around the local First Nations. And so this is a very important pole, and I hope to see more of our local pole, First Nations carvings here in this grouping.
I think the pole raising is incredibly important. The pole carving and the pole raising are incredibly important because what it does do is tells everyone that the Squamish are in a sense reclaiming Stanley Park. They're reclaiming it in a symbolic way where their ancestors had lived in the park, as a matter of course, because it's a very good piece of land for fishing, for clamming, for collecting trees. They had lived there for generations upon generations until they were chased out.
The unveiling of Robert Yelton's totem pole marked a new chapter in the shared history of Vancouver and the First Nations. A new spirit of acceptance and inclusion. A celebration of the resurgence of a culture which had been invisible here for many generations.
It's a history pole. Like for us, it's the first pole there in 130 years for my nation, and so it's a major, major plus for our people, because I know not just as myself as a carver, our people always went like, we should have a pole there, that's our territory, you know. And it was sort of way beyond us, you know, I sort of thought, and that's why nobody ever really attempted it. And I still look back and I don't know how I attempted it, but I did it, you know. And now to have a pole there for my people is just, for me, it's a major honor. So I had the band do 2 copies so I could keep one for the family. So this is who I did the pole for.
What had started out as a dream for one man became a sacred symbol for all First Nations people, celebrating the return of their language, art, and culture to these sacred lands. For Native Heartbeat, I'm Doreen Manuel reporting.
We are here at the Daybreak Star Indian Cultural Center during the benefit concert titled Looking Back Towards the Future. The fundraising event is in commemoration of the takeover and occupation of federal government property at Fort Lawton 40 years ago. On March 8, 1970, just under 100 participants calling themselves the American Indian Fort Lawton Occupation Forces stormed the fort's defenses, occupied buildings, and began setting up teepee encampments. The fort was an active army base at the time, and upon entering the grounds, the occupation forces were soon battling security forces in hand-to-hand skirmishes. Dozens of Indian people were beaten, arrested, and jailed, but more tribal members came to join in the occupation inside the gates and also to protest along the perimeter.
There were conflicts, there was people injured, property destroyed, as almost 100 Indians came through the gate. After one day of being besieged by Indians of all tribes and the fort not willing to surrender, Colonel Palos had us detained in the stockades of Fort Lawton, after which we were expelled, and that was on March 8, 1970. A week later, we reinvaded Fort Lawton, coming up from the cliffs facing the Puget Sound because the area had been surrounded by concertina wires, so we had to come up with the sea invasion. Once again, we were detained and expelled from the properties. A third invasion took place a month later, after which we dismantled our resurrection city in front of the gates and then used the media to fight for a piece of this property.
After several occupations of Fort Lawton, the American Indian Fort Lawton Occupation Forces prevailed in winning concessions from the City of Seattle and the U.S. government, which led to the securing of 20 acres of property, which are now used to provide much-needed vital services to the thousands of American Indians and Alaska Natives now living in the greater Seattle area.
I guess you have to switch the Wayback Machine. Sherman set the Wayback Machine to the year 1969. Seattle's native population was 12,800 at that time. 12,800 Indians that had come here mostly being through the relocation programs. We were probably the most underrepresented, the most overlooked population segment of society in North America. We had no centers to speak of. We had no health to speak of. We had the highest per capita rates of infant mortality, suicide, homicide, fratricide, incest, child abandonment. All of the ills that are pervasive in a culture of poverty. We needed a center. We needed a center to meet the needs and to focus on all of this. That's why we came in. We didn't have a place in this society. We had been pushed from the East Coast to the West Coast. And now we were going to start here and take back and reclaim lands as a first step to reverse that process.
Funds raised during today's Looking Back Toward the Future will be used to create awareness of the mission of United Indians of All Tribes Foundation, an organization which came into being as a result of the successful takeover of Fort Lawton. Cedar canoes have always been at the center of Indian communities living along the coastal waterways as well as inland rivers and lakes. Considered sacred, canoes are revered among Indian people as living beings. With more about a gathering that helps keep one variety of canoe culture alive, here is Native Heartbeat's Jill Nampuya with the story.
For the Coast Salish tribes of the Pacific Northwest, the annual Tribal Journeys event brings canoes together from all over the region for a week of potlatching. The Squamish tribe, the potlatch host, as well as the canoe families have worked hard all year long preparing for this gathering.
You are welcome to come ashore.
Over 100 canoes traveled the traditional routes this year, many for hundreds of miles. This physical and cultural journey teaches the importance of traditional lessons and why the canoe was central in the lives of early Native villages. For the canoe families, the canoe and its teachings have become the vessel by which the tribes are able to pass on cultural teachings to the next generations.
1, 2, 3. Kiara, Shayna, no.
Each year, as the summer ends, the Cowlitz tribe holds the John Barnett Memorial War canoe races, wrapping up the summer's events with a fun weekend of racing.
It's just a way to gather and have fun the last big weekend of the year, you might say, for our canoes before we have to put them up for winter and start doing the repairs and cleaning them up for next year. It helps us with our culture. It helps us, the people of the Cowlitz, to come back to the way the ancestors used to have gatherings down here on these beautiful waters.
On your mark, get set.
These canoe races help continue the traditional teachings of the canoe. One of those teachings, a canoe blessing, was enjoyed by all. The Cowlitz tribe master carver Robert Haryu, having completed the new dugout, looks to Joe Kalama of the Nisqually tribe for help with the cleansing. It lets each witness understand the importance of cedar trees to the Coast Salish people.
Cedar tree is a very sacred tree. It was used for many different things, not just canoes. It was used for clothing. It was used to build longhouses, our homes. It was used in all kinds of different ceremonies, the first salmon ceremony, and there was all kinds of uses for the cedar tree. We always have to remember that the things that are made out of that have to be prayed for and blessed in a good way, so if it's given to somebody, then prayers will keep it strong and the people will use it in a good way for that. In this case, the canoe. The canoe is going to haul people, and it's going to be people that are trying to get spiritually balanced on the water and try to become who they're supposed to be, and that's the Cowlitz people. And so you have to know the cedar tree and know that it wants to be used, but it has to be used in an honorable respectful way, and always prayed for and always talked to about what we're using it for, whether it's a basket, a canoe, a plank for a longhouse, whatever it is. We have to always make sure the cedar tree is aware of that, and that the gifts are offered to that cedar tree for the gift it gives us.
At each gathering, singing and dancing wraps up the day's events. During the evening's jam session, the Canoe families share each other's songs and sing well into the evening.
Doing things in the old way is very important because that's our true beliefs and our spirituality is to follow the traditions that have been handed down for thousands of years. With the Cowlitz people, we've been here for many, many, many thousands of years.
I'm Jill Nanpuya reporting for Native Heartbeat.
It took more than 20 years from inception to completion, but the grand opening of the House of Respect was worth the wait for Puyallup tribal elders. Native Heartbeat's Frank Grice has the story.
Cultures throughout the world have always revered their elders. They're the members of the community that teach the important lessons they've lived and learned over the years.
Because by listening to our elders, we've been able to survive all the hardships that were put before us from day one. I'm not just speaking of our present elders, I'm speaking of our past elders also.
For the Puyallup tribe, caring for and learning from their elders has always been important.
I'd go clear from Wampito on the Greyhound bus and then walk all the way up the hill to Muckleshoot to visit my Kayet when I was 12, 13 years old, all by myself.
One of the important lessons is respect.
You have to respect your Kayets, and when you're even at home, you respect your elders. You don't talk back. But they tell you to do something, you do it. You don't play around. Just show respect to them.
For many years, the Puyallup tribe has dreamed, planned, and worked on building a new elder center. In the fall of 2008, the tribe started construction of their new elder center, named the House of Respect. The building is being constructed on tribal land near the site of the old Cushman Indian School and Hospital. Today, that land is used partially by the tribe's casino, health clinic, and cultural center. This facility includes a wellness center, kitchen and banquet area, hydrotherapy pool, spirit garden, exercise facility, and plenty of areas for visiting.
From a very young age, we're taught to respect our elders, to take care of our elders. I went to an elementary school at the bottom of the hill here, Chief Leshai, and every morning we'd have circle. And in that circle, we would sing songs. And our elders and our teachers, they would share with us the traditional ways. And one of the very first one is that we respect our elders. From a very young child, we're taught that, to respect our elders. I can't think of a better way to show respect for our elders who have made so many sacrifices for our people, who have fought for our rights on the banks of the river right behind you here. So I can't think of a better way than to share this house of respect, to honor all those elders who have made sacrifices to get us where we're at today, to work those long hours, to put food in our mouths, clothes on our back, and shelter over our heads.
And then the time came to open the new House of Respect. During the afternoon, visitors were able to explore the new center, enjoy lunch, and a chance to sit and visit with each other. Guests from around the neighboring communities and elected officials had a chance to see and realize the respect that is paid to our Native elders in Indian country. As the new House of Respect opens, Native elders can look forward to gathering in their new home for many years to come. I'm Frank Grice reporting for Native Heartbeat.
Stay with us. More stories from throughout our Native nations when we return.
play for trees. She got game, but she play for keys. She's the type that been around the block once.
Headquarters for the United Indians of All Tribes Foundation is located in the beautiful Daybreak Star Indian Cultural Center. The mission of the foundation is to provide a variety of social, educational, and economic development opportunities and cultural activities for the Native American community.
I guess in a nutshell, the mission of United Indians is to provide and to sustain the needs of Native Americans within the Seattle area. We have within Seattle, within the metropolitan area, 89,000 Indians. And I think we have a service area of about 60,000 Indians. So we provide cultural reinforcement, cultural and spiritual reinforcement. That's what this center is about.
And now it's time to take a look at what's going on throughout our Native nations with Native Heartbeat reporter Mystique Hurtado.
Hi, this is Mystique Hurtado, and this is Throughout Our Native Nations. Federal stimulus money has been awarded to Tacoma Power to build a new power generating plant and help improve the salmon runs on the North Fork of the Squamish River. The Lower Cushman Dam on Washington State's Olympic Peninsula was completed in 1930. Since then, salmon and steelhead have been unable to swim into streams within the Olympic National Park. Higher flow levels out of the new powerhouse will attract returning adult salmon and steelhead. A stone carving was recently dedicated commemorating the Chinookian villages and art of the Columbia River near Washougal, Washington. This welcome figure is placed at the entrance to the historic Parkersville Park at the Port of Washougal. The park looks across the river at the site of an ancient Chinook village.
It's a welcome figure, obviously with Coyote on the top to make sure everybody minds their P's and Q's, and that's kind of what it was intended for, is just to be a welcoming figure, a guardian of this place, and a reminder of the people that lived and prospered here and who were quite proficient at working stone. So I was very honored to be able to do it in a stone medium, to reflect that part of their art form.
The Nisqually tribe and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Agency recently completed the restoration of the Nisqually Delta in South Puget Sound. Removing dikes that were built in the 1930s to create farmland reconnected 762 acres with the South Sound tides. The $12 million project allows the Delta to return to its natural state, providing vital habitat to waterfowl and salmon.
The Nisqually tribe has been recognized nationally for years on our projects on the river, and the tribe's ability to be able to maintain this river in its beautiful, pristine state. So we want to continue that. We want to kick it up a notch. We want to take it out and spread into the Puget Sound and clean that up as well as we possibly can.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of Native Heartbeat. Check out our website at www.nativeheartbeat.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Shanoa Igawa.
If I stay on the res, I'll be 8 times less likely to drop out of college.
If I stay on the res,
I won't be just another number.
I can learn biology in my native language.
I can use my education to help my people.
If I stay on the res,
I'll be more likely to transfer to a university.
6 times more likely. If I stay on the res.
There's a 9 in 10 chance I'll finish college.
And I will finish college.
I will learn about the old ways so my culture will live on.
I will make my parents proud.
I'll make my people proud.
Our history will not be forgotten.
If I stay on the res.
I can get a quality education.
At a tribal college. At a tribal college.
If I stay on the res.
If I stay on the res.
If I stay on the res.
Learn more about the 33 tribal colleges and how they're helping Native American people and their reservations. The American Indian College Fund, educating the mind and spirit.
I'm going to stay on the res.